The Rise and Shine podcast series is made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois.
You know, Bobby's an anti-Zionist, and Bridget over here is a religious Zionist who believes that this is the beginning of the flowering of our redemption. We love both of you, Bobby and Bridget. You're welcome at this table.
I think I'm not making the dinner.
This is Rise and Shine, a podcast that offers timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations to fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note. Here is Adrienne Gold Davis.
It's a basic Jewish premise that when blessing comes upon our people, it's because we're unified. When we're like one person with one heart. And that when we're in a state of disunity, we block the flow, the mazal of blessing, even in our own hearts. And that blocks it in our homes and in our communities and indeed in the world at large. And while Judaism is uncompromising on this concept, it doesn't impose uniformity on its adherents. In Hebrew, this concept is called achdut velo achidut, unity without uniformity. And there's another powerful Jewish concept that's called sinat chinam, which means baseless hatred. And our sages tell us that that was the ultimate destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem and our subsequent exile as a result of that. You see, baseless hatred is I hate you because you mess up in different ways than I do. So it would appear, based on that the antidote to it would be ahavas chinam, baseless love. And yet we are taught that baseless love can be dangerous, can be enabling, and not terribly productive, like giving an addict an endless supply of money so that they can use it to harm themselves, like setting zero boundaries for your children so they'll never be angry or disappointed in us. So the real opposite to baseless hatred is not baseless love, but rather it is love with a purpose. And it is through this, one of our 8 values, that Momentum seeks to empower women to change the world through Jewish values that transform ourselves, our families, and our communities. You know, there's this idea that we're each like rays of the sun. We're illuminating and spotlighting the source of brilliant light, but doing so almost like the process of refraction. You remember refraction from primary school, science class. That white light is bent or refracted through perhaps the rain droplets in the air after a rain, and that's how we get a rainbow. Now, the rainbow itself was always there because white light contains all of those different hues, but it needed those droplets to act like a crystal, to act like a refractor, to reveal all of the hues that were already there. But the source of the rainbow is the sun itself. So what beauty when each of us, as a metaphoric ray of sun, refracts through our own character traits, our interests, our talents, even our struggles, to illuminate our piece of the world in a way that no one else can. Well, I've invited my friend and colleague, Jessica Berkowitz, to discuss this concept with me. You know, at first glance, we seem very different. She is a young mother of a young girl. She lives on the other side of the country to me. Our backgrounds and education could not be more different. And yet, as our relationship deepened, we delighted to discover how very much we share our passion for Judaism, our love of music, our need for laughter, among so many, many more things that are perhaps not so fit for publication. So Jessica Minen Berkowitz is a writer. She's a ritualist. She's a liturgist. And she's committed, she says, to the discipline of delight. And before coming to Momentum, she was part of the founding team at One Table. She was director of Jewish learning there for many years. She's a sought-after educator. She's taught for Hillel, for Jewish federations, for the JCC Association of North America, for the Foundation for Jewish Camps, and for Birthright, among others. Now, she's originally from Paducah, Kentucky, and she's an alumna of the Washington University in St. Louis, the Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies, and the European Institute for Jewish Studies in Sweden. Baltimore Hebrew University, and she got rabbinical ordination at the Jewish Theology Seminary. She's a past fellow of Reboot, the Shalom Hartman's Institute's women's leadership mission, and more and more. This woman is a nachas machine for her mother, clearly. Welcome, Jessica Berkowitz.
Wow, I should have someone read that every time I walk into any room because it makes me feel so good. Thank you for having me, Adrienne.
Are you kidding? You are such a queen. My goodness. Even I actually was starting to feel like I was shrinking as I was reading your biography, because when I compare yours to mine, we are, in terms of our past experience, so very, very different. And yet we have so much in common, and you are one of my favorites. So what I wanted to ask you about is, when you think about unity, that elusive elixir for all of our troubles, what comes to mind for you?
I think about it a lot, first of all, which is perhaps an uncommon entry point. I think many of us, if not most of us, don't wake up in the morning thinking about that which unites us. We get on our phones and start scrolling and are bombarded by that which divides us.
Right.
So having at the very top a shift of reference and perspective, I think, can be really helpful. Even in those minutia moments of our day, what would it look like to start your day with that which unites us rather than that which divides us, is a framing question that I think everyone should be asking themselves. And that being said, I do think a lot about unity under pressure. When people think about unity and we talk about Am Echad, the idea of the Jewish people as one people,
Right.
and the Torah goes out of its way to describe us this way. I have a great reference in the book of Exodus in 19, when we're encamped at the base of Mount Sinai, getting ready to receive Torah as one people. And that verb is in the singular because we're one people. We're
Right.
one unit. So you would think we receive the Torah as one people, united, and we head out into this project of being a people, and it's really challenging, but really good. And what actually happens is that it's really challenging, and like immediately things fall apart.
Of course.
So like the first thing we do is like, I'm afraid because I can't find Moshe, I'm going to build an idol moments after making a commitment to one God.
It's like cheating on your honeymoon, right?
Yeah, I know, right? It's like
can't you wait?
we didn't make it very far. And
No.
mere chapters later, when the episode of the Golden Calf erupts. And I love this story for what it teaches us about unity, because unity here is real. We are united in this pursuit of building something to worship, to something that we can see and touch. It's a process that's alive, and it reminds us that our unity is also fragile. So we feel it in these moments of shared purpose, but it's complicated, right? By emotions that animate our daily lives.
Wait a minute. Are you saying it's fragile because if we use our unity in order to build something that is improper or dangerous, that same desire to be unified needs to be directed to something that's good? Is that why it's fragile?
Yeah, I think that is one way of looking at it. Unity is fragile because it comes alive in moments of shared purpose. And
Okay.
when the shared purpose is building, and we'll talk in some other episodes about how we craft our home lives and how we engage in acts of gratitude. When our shared purpose is what I would call like meaning making, part of that sort of project of being Jewish in the world in meaningful ways, unity can feel really alive. But unity can also be very complicated. It can allow us to act on fear or uncertainty in ways that can be very dangerous.
Okay,
And
I'm not getting this. Explain this more. I'm sorry. I'm not getting.
think about groupthink or
Oh, I see. Got it.
or mob mentality or the desire within us, within all of us, to conform. And I hear that from my daughter, who's 7 years old, comes home from school, and she's in that place of life where she wants to be unified with everyone else. And she thinks that means I want to be like everyone else.
The same.
And that's a dangerous version of unity. And Judaism actually warns us against that. That we are not meant to be the same, that when we are described as one, that oneness is not sameness. And so the golden calf episode, I think, really reminds us that unity is real and fragile. And I like to hold both of those things as I explore what unity can mean.
Okay, but when we're talking about, I mean, when I think about building the golden calf, for example, or just like any structure, if you will, there's going to be a person who's like a welder, and there's going to be a person who's a painter, and there's going to be a person who is a bricklayer or whatever it is. Let's say you're on a construction site. So nobody is doing the same thing, but the purpose is to build this structure. So there is no uniformity in how they're building, but there is a common vision. So is that what it means to have unity without uniformity?
It can, but sometimes not. Like, there's a teaching from Rav Kook, and he was the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of the state of Israel and a religious Zionist thinker, and someone who, all of us should invest some time in learning from Rav Kook.
Okay.
And he Kook, Rav Kook, and he teaches that we don't always have the same vision, and that unity for Israel, for the people Israel, the Jewish people, is something so great and so powerful and so full of potential that it can emerge even or precisely when we have true diversity, ideological diversity, that we may not actually have the same shared vision, and that it could be a slow and painful process to arrive at the understanding that our differences are not failures, but a feature.
Okay, so this I hear. Tell me how that would manifest, say, in family life.
Oh, I think we feel it in family life constantly, in which to be present Jewishly in family life, and I speak personally, it does not mean a lack of difference or a lack of argument.
Yeah.
Unity in our family life, I think, feels complicated because we think by disagreeing, we're losing our shared purpose. And I would argue, and I think our source text, for example, Pirkei Avot, in which we are taught that we are meant to distinguish the way we disagree, that there are ways to disagree that allow us to hold on to a shared purpose. I remember my mom saying, like, I don't always like you, but I always love you.
Oh, my mother said that, and I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated that, Jessica.
I hated it at the time, but now I love it so much. And I feel that about my co-religionists all the time. There are plenty of Jews where I'm like, I don't always like you, my brother, but I love you. And I want to be a part of this family, albeit this sometimes dysfunctional family. And I truly do believe that there's power in the process of disagreement.
Okay, I agree with you. I see that. And in my family, specifically, there is a lot of disagreement about some very fundamental things. And if I'm really honest with myself, the reason it becomes problematic is because on some level, I have ascribed moral correctness to the way I look at something and moral failure to the way somebody else looks at something. And yet, I love each and every one of them. with all my heart. And I don't know how to sit with that dissonance. How do you sit in a situation? How do you create unity when the person across from you, when your co-religionist, you and your kid, when your spouse, when somebody sees the world in a way that is so utterly different than the way you do, and that your sense of self is very tied up in your way? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, you actually taught me a tool to navigate that, which is a midrash that you brought that is so beautiful, which is that we as Jews are responsible for carrying the broken and the whole. And the midrash actually uses the example of the tablets of the Ten Commandments. So we go back to it always goes back to the cow, doesn't it? We go back to the narrative of the golden calf, where there's this real moral divide, right? And Moses comes down Sinai, comes down the mountain and sees what the people are doing and is like, literally OMG, and shatters the tablets. And we as a people carry those broken tablets alongside the replacement, the whole tablets, in perpetuity. That to be whole, my moral certitude requires in Judaism an acknowledgement of rupture, of potential shame, because I think we carry that as well, and the possibility of repair. So often what feels complicated is not that I'm right and you're wrong, but that I'm going to carry the brokenness along with the wholeness.
Yeah, how do you do it? I mean, I have to be honest, there are people in my life, for example, who are anti-Zionists, who I've loved my whole life, whose worldview is so fundamentally different than mine, who I have an overwhelming urge to shake. And yet, love so much.
Yeah.
So let me look at it like this. Can I say, in order to foster unity without uniformity, can I say, I think you are absolutely incorrect, and I love you?
Yeah. And say it again, because I think people need to hear it. It's okay to absolutely fundamentally disagree with someone who you love.
That's
right. You know, our people do that. There's this that's another midrash, but it's talking about how
Can you just quickly explain what a midrash is?
you know, I like to describe it as fan fiction about the Torah, but the Torah is quite remarkable in that it doesn't tell us a lot of detail. It'll leave out like big chunks of information, and the sages and the rabbis noticed this and were frustrated by it, and wrote these beautiful stories and teachings and ideas that they captured in this kind of fan fiction called midrash. And to fill in those blanks and to kind of put the puzzle pieces together of what could have been happening, what might people have been feeling when we don't get that information. And there's this beautiful midrash about Israel being encamped together. And even though we're described as one people, famously, we have different accents and we have different leaders and we have different banners for our tribes. And so the takeaway here is that we are one people, but we are not homogenous. And that when our families can name the differences, instead of trying to get together at the dinner table and pretending like flattening the differences, pretending like there is no difference, and then of course something erupts because the differences are real, naming them. Make a banner. Like the tribes had banners that announced their differences, different colors, different animals, different spirit animals, right? Different ways of being in the world. And I think, you know, for us to come to the table with literally, like, use the dinner table as an example and say, I just want to acknowledge everyone's getting back together here, and you know, Bobby's an anti-Zionist, and Bridget over here is a religious Zionist who believes that, you know, Reshit Smichat Gulatenu, that this is the beginning of the flowering of our redemption. We're going to name it We love both of you, Bobby and Bridget. You're welcome at this table.
Okay, that's gorgeous. But here's my question. Do you tell them you can't talk about your differences over the dinner table? Because
Maybe.
in my day, you didn't talk about religion or politics when you were sharing a meal with someone. It was just unspoken. And now it seems to be the only thing people want to speak about. And if you know it's just going to end up in a fight, how do we come up with ways to focus on what was uniting us rather than what's dividing us? Does that mean we need to have conversations at our fingertips, ready ideas that will build meaningful conversation that isn't about those things? And when a person takes a really hard line on something, and I see this happening in politics as well, when somebody takes a very hard line on something, it becomes their identity and they have to find a way to squish it into every situation. Great dessert, love cherry pie, and what you think is wrong,
Yeah.
So like, what do you do with that, Jessica?
Well, there's a few things I think that are important here. One is to remind people that you don't have to have the conversation. And to give people permission to not have the conversation. I think sometimes, especially women, we feel like we have to fix it, like we have to engage, like we have to be the ones that host the dinner for Bobby and Bridget. And we have to be the ones that have like the set up meaningful questions that we're gonna ask, and it's gonna be great. You know what, ladies? Come on. You do not. Like Adrienne and I give you permission. So you do not have to do that. You don't have to have the conversation. You certainly don't have to engage online with trolls. What you do have to do is the internal work of saying with intention, I am going to host this dinner, or I'm not going to host this dinner, or I am going to host this dinner, but we're going to have some parameters that acknowledge that we're coming from really different places. And we're going to put that in the bike rack or the parking lot for tonight.
Mhm.
Or we're going to acknowledge that this may come up, and our purpose here at this dinner or in this conversation is not to agree. It's not to change anyone's minds. It's just to listen. That's it.
Wow. Wow. That's a level of maturity that requires, I think, all the people in the room to agree upon it. I think I'm not making the dinner.
Yeah. And that's again, that's perfectly fine, right? Because unity without uniformity does not require or force us to have the dinner, right? It can say that sometimes it's just not worth it. Or we can say that this relationship is so important that I'm going to tell this person, I love you so much that I would prefer, for the sake of our relationship and our family, that we not talk about X, Y, or Z, if that's okay with you. And you have the power to make those choices. It's really, and I hope people do feel empowered, that they don't have to have the conversation, or that they can construct parameters around having the conversation.
This is a huge revelation for me, Jessica, because essentially what I'm hearing you say is that unity without uniformity, or unity at large, is an action word. It requires a lot of pre-thought, pre-planning, and the acknowledgement, the advanced acknowledgement that there will be people in your life that you fundamentally disagree with. You even think they are dead wrong. And yet it does not give you the right to withdraw human decency and dignity from them, to recognize them as being created in God's image as well, and that there doesn't need to be cutoff. And I think that cutoff, and we see so much of it these days, is a cheap way of moving through the world without finding your internal compassion and without recognizing what Ruff Cook tried to teach us. And I don't know how we turn that around. I don't. It scares me.
Perhaps it's inviting people to have a really simple mantra or phrase in mind. And the Maharal, who's a great sage from Prague, with whom I disagree. I want to say it's with whom I disagree about a lot. So it's important, I think, and one of the things I love about Jewish learning is that, to engage in these sources and these texts, and to engage in conversation and this time travel conversation with our sages, is not to agree with everything they say, but an invitation to to form your own opinions and to be in machloket or sacred disagreement. But the Maharal teaches that unity is a shared source, not sameness. We all have the same capital S source, Hashem.
Is sun, as based on the earlier metaphor that I gave.
Right. But we are not the same. And if you can have in your back pocket that sense of, even when you're looking at the person who looks different, sounds different, you couldn't possibly have anything in common. And remember that we come from the same source, but we are not the same. That can be transformative in the way that you choose or choose not to engage. And sometimes it's literal, like you're looking at your brother. We literally come from the same source, but we are not the same. And I'm going to make choices about how to be in a relationship with you, or in some cases, how to successfully not be in a relationship with you. And that is a part of unity. It is. How we choose to navigate these relationships all speaks and all comes back to seeing the dignity in the other, that we are of the same source, even if we are not able to sit at the same table.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I have a lot to think about and a lot to unpack personally here. Obviously, this is a situation and a subject that is very important to me. Your last few comments moved me deeply. Jessica, thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. I look forward to sitting at the table with you soon.
Me too.
Thanks for listening to Rise and Shine. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to Momentum Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join Adrienne again next time for more timeless wisdom and uplifting meditations that fill your heart, feed your soul, and start your day on a positive note.
This podcast was made possible by the generous support of Bonnie Vozar of Chicago, Illinois. Spread the wisdom. Inspire Jewish individuals around the globe by supporting Momentum's podcasts. To sponsor, contact podcast@momentumunlimited.org. You're listening to a Momentum podcast. For unlimited inspiration, wisdom, and empowerment, visit momentumunlimited.org.